When your psychologist girlfriend tells you you're paranoid, and then it turns out your paranoia is the only thing working properly, you realize the world has flipped upside down. I never considered myself a suspicious type. Working at an auto repair shop in Sacramento taught me one thing: machines don't lie. They either work or they don't. People are a completely different story. Melinda came into my life 3 years ago. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue, and within a month I couldn't imagine my morning without hearing her voice. She was smart, beautiful, with that special charm that made you feel like the center of the universe. We rented a small 2-bedroom apartment downtown, and although we weren't officially married, I considered us family. Maybe that was my first mistake. I'm Ruben, I'm 32, and I always believed honesty is the foundation of relationships. She, Melinda, worked as a psychologist at a private clinic, helping people sort through their problems. The irony of the situation hit me later, when I realized how well she could manipulate. It all started with little things. She began staying late at work more often, spending more time on her phone. When I asked, she'd smile and say something about difficult clients or new therapy methods. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She's a psychologist. She knows how the human psyche works. Why would she lie? The day everything changed, I was just scrolling through Instagram after my shift. Motor oil still felt embedded under my fingernails, and I just wanted to zone out. I saw a post from Samantha, Melinda's friend from college. Photos from some EDM festival, bright lights, crowds, music. I was about to scroll past, but something made me stop. In the background, slightly out of focus but absolutely recognizable, Melinda. She was kissing a man. Not just a peck on the cheek or a friendly hug. A real, passionate kiss. My finger froze over the screen. My heart pounded like I'd just run a marathon. I zoomed in on the photo. The same black dress she wore to her work party with colleagues 2 weeks ago. The same earrings I'd given her for her birthday. And the man next to her, something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't figure out what. The next few days I was on autopilot. Turning bolts, changing oil, talking to customers, but the whole time one question spun in my head. Who is he? Melinda acted completely natural. Kissed me goodbye in the mornings, asked about work, cooked dinners. The perfect partner. The perfect liar. I didn't confront her immediately. Something told me to find out more. Maybe it was pride. Maybe fear of looking like a fool. Or maybe part of me still hoped it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything but betrayal. A week later, she said she was going to a seminar in San Francisco for the weekend. Something about new approaches in cognitive behavioral therapy. I nodded, smiled, and wished her a good time. And when she left Friday morning, I called my boss and said I was sick. Following someone looks simple in movies. In reality, it's a cocktail of adrenaline, fear, and an absolute sense of absurdity. I drove behind her Honda 3 cars back, feeling like a character in some cheap detective novel. She didn't head north to San Francisco. Instead, she turned east, toward the suburbs. She stopped at a new development in one of those neighborhoods where apartments cost as much as my 2 years' salary. A man came out of the building. Tall, lean, in a designer jacket that screamed money. They hugged. Not the way friends hug. The way lovers who haven't seen each other in an eternity embrace, though in reality it had probably been just a few days. I sat in my old Chevrolet, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And then it hit me. I knew this man. Or rather, knew about him. Kristopher. Melinda had mentioned him a few times early in our relationship. An ex-boyfriend she broke up with because he was too focused on his career. A fashion designer who moved to Los Angeles to build his brand. Obviously, he'd come back. Or they'd never really broken up. The next 2 weeks I lived in some parallel dimension. During the day I worked. In the evenings I sat at the computer doing what previously seemed immoral to me. Digging through her private life. I checked bank statements from our joint account. Found expenses for hotels, restaurants, tickets to that same EDM festival. All on days when she was supposedly at work or with girlfriends. But the worst was yet to come. One evening, while Melinda was in the shower, her phone vibrated. A message from Kristopher. Have you told him yet? We can't keep doing this. I want to be with you officially. My hands shook as I opened their chat. Months of correspondence. Photos. Declarations of love. And one message that knocked the ground out from under my feet. Going in for the procedure tomorrow. I know we both want this, but now isn't the time. When I leave Ruben, we'll do everything right. Procedure. Abortion. She'd been pregnant with his child, and had an abortion without telling me a word. We lived under the same roof, slept in the same bed, and she carried and terminated a pregnancy with another man, and I didn't even suspect. Something broke inside me at that moment. Not anger, not even pain. A cold, rational realization that the person I trusted most was completely alien. I didn't make a scene, didn't yell, didn't accuse. Instead, I did something else. For years I'd been setting aside money for a rainy day. Small amounts from each paycheck that Melinda never even noticed. About $30,000 sat in an account she didn't know about. I transferred it to an offshore account I opened through a lawyer friend, a client at our shop. This was my insurance policy. Then I gathered all the evidence. Screenshots of correspondence, bank card statements, photos she sent to Kristopher, even a receipt from the clinic she carelessly left in her jacket pocket. I systematically organized everything and saved it to cloud storage. The next evening I cooked dinner. Her favorite seafood pasta, open wine. Melinda walked in, raising her eyebrows in surprise. "What's the occasion?" she smiled. "We're celebrating," I replied calmly. "Celebrating that you're finally free." Her smile froze. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my tablet and showed her the screen. Our chat with Kristopher was open. "You don't need to explain," I said. "It's all clear. The apartment is registered to both of us, but according to the lease, we can get out if we find a replacement. I already found one. A buddy from work is moving to Sacramento. He'll take my share." Melinda first tried to deny, then cried, then moved to anger. Classic psychological tactics she probably studied in university. But I was unmoved. "I'll pick up my things tomorrow. There's almost no shared property except furniture, which you can keep. Documents to terminate the joint living agreement are already prepared. You'll sign tomorrow morning." "Reuben, wait, let me explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted. "That you love him." "I know. That you never really loved me." "I know that too. Judging by the correspondence, you saw me as a stable option while Kristopher built his career. Now he's back and you don't need me. It's all logical." Her face went pale. She hadn't expected me to know so much. "Money from the joint account I split equally," I continued. "Your half is already in your personal account. We're square." What she didn't know, half of that money was already safe in my offshore account. I only transferred what I considered shared, and kept my savings for myself. This wasn't theft. This was justice. Within a week I rented a small studio on the other side of town. Melinda moved in with Kristopher. Her friend Samantha even deleted that photo from Instagram once everything became public. Melinda probably asked her to. Some of our mutual friends supported me. Others her. Most just exited both our lives, not wanting to choose sides. I didn't blame them. The most amazing thing was that a month after the breakup, I didn't feel pain but relief. Like I'd taken a weight off my shoulders I didn't even know existed. I was free. Free from lies, from illusions, from a life that was actually a performance for one person, me. A year later I opened my own auto repair shop. Those savings Melinda didn't know about became seed capital. Business went well. I hired 2 mechanics, and we quickly earned a reputation as the most reliable in the area. Sometimes I saw Melinda's posts on social media. She looked happy with Kristopher. They traveled, attended fashion events, built the life she probably always dreamed of. I didn't feel jealous, didn't feel angry. I simply understood. We were never meant for each other. Some say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. This wasn't revenge. This was choosing to move forward without letting the past define the future. She got what she wanted, Kristopher. I got what I didn't know I needed, myself. Those 3 years we spent together taught me the main thing: trust but verify. Love but not blindly. And always have a plan B. Now I'm no longer that naive guy who believed in fairy tales about eternal love. I'm a realist. I know people are capable of betrayal, lies, manipulation. But I also know that doesn't make everyone bad. It makes me more careful. My shop is thriving. My bank account is growing. New people appear in my life, new opportunities. And Melinda became just a story I sometimes tell friends over beer. A story about how betrayal turned into the best thing that could have happened to me. Because if she hadn't cheated, I'd still be living in an illusion, spending years on someone who never truly valued me. Now I'm free to build a life on my own terms. But let me tell you more about how I discovered the full extent of the deception, because that festival photo was just the tip of the iceberg. After I saw them together at Kristopher's apartment, I couldn't just let it go. I needed to understand the timeline, the depth of the betrayal. Was this a recent thing, or had I been living a lie for months, maybe years? I started paying attention to details I'd previously overlooked. The new lingerie that appeared in her drawer, she said it was for feeling confident at work. The subtle changes in her schedule, always perfectly explained. The way she'd started doing her makeup differently on certain days, not for me, but for him. I remembered a conversation we had 6 months ago. She'd mentioned running into an old friend at a coffee shop downtown. Said it was nice to catch up, nothing more. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. Now I realized that was probably when Kristopher came back into her life, or maybe he'd never left it. The mechanics of their affair were methodical. She used her profession as the perfect cover, late sessions with difficult clients, weekend seminars, evening workshops. Who would question a dedicated psychologist trying to help people? Meanwhile, she was building an entire parallel life. I dove deeper into our bank statements. There were charges I'd missed before. A gym membership she claimed was for stress relief. The same gym Kristopher apparently used, based on his Instagram check-ins. Lunch expenses at restaurants in neighborhoods she had no professional reason to visit. Small purchases at boutiques that specialized in designer clothes, probably buying things to wear for him. The abortion discovery haunted me most. I calculated the timeline based on the messages. She would have been about 8 weeks along when she terminated the pregnancy. During that same period, she'd been particularly affectionate with me, probably out of guilt. She'd suggested we take a weekend trip to Napa Valley, said she wanted to reconnect. I'd thought it was romantic. Now I understood it was her way of managing her conscience. I found the clinic's address in her GPS history. It was a discreet facility in a wealthy part of town, the kind of place that catered to people who valued privacy above all else. Kristopher had probably paid for it. The invoice I found showed it was settled in cash, and Melinda never carried that much cash. What struck me most was the coldness of the calculation. She'd gotten pregnant, made the decision to abort, went through with it, and came home to me the same evening acting like nothing had happened. She'd even asked me to order Thai food, her favorite comfort meal. I'd held her on the couch while we watched a movie, completely unaware that hours earlier she'd eliminated a pregnancy with another man. This level of compartmentalization, it wasn't just lying. It was something deeper. Maybe her psychology training taught her how to separate different aspects of her life, how to maintain cognitive dissonance without breaking down. Or maybe she was just naturally talented at deception. I started documenting everything. Took photos of receipts, saved screenshots of their messages, recorded her lies in a journal with dates and times. I wasn't sure why I was doing it. We weren't married, so there'd be no divorce court. But something in me needed the validation, the proof that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts were correct. One evening, about 2 weeks after I'd started my investigation, Melinda came home excited. She said she'd been offered an opportunity to co-author a research paper with a colleague, and it might mean more late evenings and weekend work. She looked me right in the eyes as she said it, her expression earnest and hopeful. She even asked if I'd be okay with her busier schedule. I said yes, of course, told her I was proud of her. Inside, I was marveling at the performance. There was no research paper. There was just Kristopher, and more time she wanted to spend with him. That's when I decided I needed to see them together one more time, to really understand what I was dealing with. Was she just having an affair, or was she completely checked out of our relationship? I followed her again the next Friday. She'd said she was going to a therapy networking event at a hotel downtown. Instead, she drove to Kristopher's place. I parked across the street and waited. An hour later, they emerged, dressed for an evening out. He had his arm around her waist in that possessive way that told me everything I needed to know. They went to an upscale restaurant I'd never been able to afford. Through the window, I watched them share a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. They laughed, held hands across the table, fed each other bites of their meal. It was intimate in a way Melinda and I hadn't been in. I couldn't even remember how long. That's what hurt most. Not the physical betrayal, but seeing her so happy, so alive with him. She never looked at me that way anymore. Maybe she never had. After dinner they walked through the downtown area, stopping to look in shop windows, stealing kisses in doorways. They looked like a couple in love, because that's what they were. I was just the obstacle they had to navigate around. I went home before they did. Sat in our apartment, in the dark, waiting. When she came in around midnight, she seemed surprised to find me still awake. "How was the networking event?" I asked. "Oh, you know, the usual," she said, setting down her purse. "Lots of talk about therapeutic approaches, some interesting case studies. Pretty boring, actually." She'd built the lie so easily, so naturally. There wasn't even a pause before she answered. "Did you eat?" I asked. "Just appetizers at the event," she said. "I'm actually pretty full." Another lie, so casual it might as well have been truth. That night, lying next to her in bed, I felt like I was next to a stranger. How many nights had we slept side by side while she dreamed of him? How many times had she kissed me after kissing him? How many "I love yous" were just words to maintain the charade? I spent those last weeks before the confrontation preparing my exit strategy. Found the studio apartment, arranged the transfer of money, gathered my documents. I also started slowly removing personal items from our shared space, photos, gifts, things that mattered to me. Just a few items at a time, so she wouldn't notice. I stored them at a buddy's garage. I researched offshore accounts and found a lawyer who specialized in asset protection. He asked if I was going through a divorce, and I explained we weren't married. He seemed confused about why I needed his services, but he helped anyway. That $30,000 became untouchable, placed in a legal structure that would have taken Melinda years to penetrate even if she'd known about it. The joint account had about $12,000. I split it evenly, $6,000 for her, $6,000 for me. Fair and clean. She'd never know about the other money, the money I'd earned and saved before and during our relationship, kept separate specifically because some instinct told me to maintain independence. I also made copies of our lease agreement and consulted with a tenant rights organization. Confirmed that as long as I found a suitable replacement tenant and gave proper notice, I could leave without penalty. My buddy from the shop, Mike, was looking for a place, and our landlord liked the idea of keeping the apartment occupied without having to list it. Everything was arranged. I had an exit plan that was airtight. Looking back, I think part of me enjoyed those final weeks in a twisted way. I held all the cards, knew all the secrets, while Melinda continued her performance. There was power in that knowledge, in watching her lie while knowing the truth. I also felt a strange sense of calm. The anxiety that had plagued me for months, the vague sense that something was wrong, had disappeared. Now I knew what was wrong, and I had a plan to fix it. That clarity was almost euphoric. The night I finally confronted her, I'd rehearsed what I'd say a dozen times. But when the moment came, it wasn't the dramatic scene I'd imagined. It was quiet, almost mundane. She tried every tactic in the Psychologist's playbook. First, denial. That's not what it looks like. Then minimization. It was just a moment of weakness. Then blame shifting. You've been so distant lately, I felt lonely. Finally, bargaining. We can work through this, go to couples therapy, start fresh. But I'd already made my decision. This wasn't a relationship worth saving. It wasn't even a relationship, really. It was a comfortable arrangement for her, while she maintained her real relationship with Kristopher. When did you stop loving me? I asked her at one point. Or did you ever love me at all? She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I cared about you. I still do. But Kristopher, he's my person. He always has been. At least she was honest about that. Then why stay with me? I asked. Because I was scared, she admitted. Kristopher's life is unstable, the fashion industry, the travel, the uncertainty. You represented security, a normal life. But I missed the excitement, the passion. I thought I could have both. That's not how life works, I said. I know that now, she replied. The next morning she signed the papers. No lawyers, no drama, just 2 signatures and we were done. She'd already packed a bag. I think she'd been preparing for this moment too, in her own way. As she stood at the door, about to leave, she turned back to me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserved better than this. Yeah, I said. I did. And that was it. 3 years together ended with a closed door. The weeks that followed were strange. My new studio felt empty, but also liberating. I could arrange my space exactly how I wanted it. No more compromising on decor. No more pretending to like the scented candles she bought. No more walking on eggshells around someone else's moods. I threw myself into work. Started taking on extra projects, stayed late at the shop. My boss noticed my dedication and started talking about giving me more responsibility, maybe even making me a partner eventually. I also started planning my own business. Used the quiet evenings to research what it would take to open my own repair shop. Looked into locations, calculated startup costs, studied successful garage operations. That offshore money would be my seed capital, but I needed a solid business plan first. Friends tried to set me up on dates, but I wasn't ready. The betrayal had left me cautious, skeptical. I needed time to rebuild my ability to trust, to believe that not everyone was performing an elaborate deception. I did run into Samantha once, Melinda's friend, who'd posted that fateful festival photo. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me at a coffee shop. "I'm sorry," she said, approaching my table. "I didn't know you didn't know." I took that photo down as soon as Melinda told me what happened. "It's okay," I told her. "You actually did me a favor. Better to know than to live in ignorance." "For what it's worth," Samantha said. I told her she was making a mistake. "You were good to her." "Being good to someone doesn't mean they'll be good to you," I replied. She nodded sadly and left. I also heard through mutual friends that Melinda and Kristopher's relationship hit some rough patches. Apparently, the reality of being together full-time wasn't as perfect as their stolen moments had been. There were arguments about money. Kristopher's fashion business wasn't as successful as he'd claimed. There were issues with his jealousy, ironically enough. And there was the simple fact that relationships built on betrayal have shaky foundations. I felt no satisfaction hearing this. I wasn't invested in their failure or success. They were part of my past, and I was focused on my future. 6 months after the breakup, I signed the lease on a small garage space in an industrial area of Sacramento. It wasn't much, 2 bays, a small office, limited parking, but it was mine. I named it Honest Mechanics, a little inside joke about honesty being the foundation I'd rebuild my life on. Business started slow but steady. I undercut the bigger shops on price while over-delivering on service. I was honest with customers about what they needed and what could wait. Word spread. Within a year, I had to hire my first employee. Within 2 years, I'd expanded to 4 bays and had 3 full-time mechanics working for me. The offshore money I'd protected turned out to be the best decision I'd made. It gave me the security to take risks, to invest in quality equipment, to weather the slow months without panic. Melinda never knew she'd funded the foundation of my success by driving me to protect my assets. I eventually started dating again. Slowly, carefully. I learned to recognize red flags I'd missed with Melinda. I asked more questions, paid attention to inconsistencies, trusted my instincts. Not in a paranoid way, but in a healthy, self-protective way. My business continued to grow. I eventually bought the building that housed my shop, expanded to 6 bays, and hired a full-time office manager. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined possible when I was just a mechanic working for someone else. I never saw Melinda again in person, though I occasionally glimpsed her social media through mutual friends. She and Kristopher eventually broke up, about 3 years after I left. She moved to Portland, started working at a wellness center. Last I heard, she was in a relationship with someone new, still searching for whatever it was she couldn't find. I didn't feel vindicated or smug about her failed relationship. I'd moved past needing that kind of validation. My happiness wasn't dependent on her unhappiness. I'd built a good life, a life based on honesty, hard work, and authentic connections. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about those 3 years with Melinda. I try to identify the exact moment when things went wrong, when she decided I wasn't enough. But I've come to realize there probably wasn't a specific moment. Some people are just fundamentally incompatible, and no amount of effort can bridge that gap. What I learned from the experience shaped me in ways I'm grateful for now, even though I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. I learned that love without honesty is just an illusion. I learned that gut instincts exist for a reason. Our subconscious picks up on details our conscious mind misses. I learned that financial independence isn't just about money. It's about having options when life falls apart. Most importantly, I learned that betrayal, as devastating as it feels in the moment, isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter, a painful one, but one that leads to new chapters if you let it. My shop's success, the life I've built, none of it would exist if Melinda hadn't betrayed me. That festival photo that Samantha posted, the one that shattered my illusions, was actually a gift. It freed me from a relationship that was slowly suffocating my potential. Today, when I think about Melinda, I feel mostly indifference and a little gratitude. She taught me what I don't want in a partner and helped me recognize what I do want. She showed me I'm capable of surviving heartbreak and coming out stronger. The offshore account that I set up in those desperate weeks before leaving, it's still there, though now it's just one part of a more complex financial strategy. That initial $30,000 has grown through careful investment and business profits. If I could go back and talk to the Reuben who was sitting in his car, watching his girlfriend kiss another man at a music festival, I'd tell him, I know it feels like the end of the world right now. I know you're questioning everything you thought you knew. But trust me, this is actually the beginning. The pain you're feeling is the birth pang of the life you're supposed to be living. Hold on. Document everything. Protect yourself. And then walk away with your head high, because you deserve someone who chooses you first, not someone who keeps you as a backup plan. That's the real revenge, I suppose, not destroying the person who hurt you, but building such a good life that their betrayal becomes just a footnote in your success story. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video, there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.